Today, we're going to be talking about a topic that is actually, I'm really excited to be able to talk about this topic because I don't really often get a time to take like a deep dive into some of the, what's really going on with the skin, what's really going on with what we often call hyperpigmentations, but I'm just going to say dark spots because there's lots of different reasons why these come up and why sometimes they take longer than other times. So first, let's actually talk about the different types of pigmentation that are not for sure surface problems. Sometimes it's sun memory, or sometimes it's inflammation, sometimes it's hormonal, sometimes it's like a deeper pigmentation that's sitting in the tissue for years and years and years, kind of like what I often talk about when, we used to sit outside with a record folder with aluminum foil in the sun with baby oil. That's sun damage. That's coming up from underneath from years and years and years of accumulation. So that's some of the deeper issues that can show up as dark spots. But sometimes it's also the congestion, like lymph congestion, detox pathways, reparative systems that actually need more support. And this is why I do what I do with True Energy, with the managing, not just looking at the skin as a surface element, but as a entire system. Like, what is this entire skin system telling us from an inside out? So that's where I'm always looking at what information is the cell getting when it is formed as a skin cell and comes to the surface of the skin. So in that formation of those new healthy cells, are they being compromised? Are they being congested? Are there toxins that are preventing it from developing into a healthy cell or maintaining an unhealthy cell like lesions and dark spots that are not coming up into the surface of the skin as a healthy cell tissue or a skin tissue, but more as a pigmentation, a dark pigmentation. All spots are not the same, and how they appear are not the same. So sunspots are often where the skin has repeated exposure, and it often shows up on cheeks, forehead, hands, and chest, whereas age spots are usually an accumulation of oxidative stress. So it's a slower cellular turnover with that oxidative stress, so that the long term, whether it's sun exposure or environmental exposure, it more has to do with the stress of the cells and the slower cell turnover. So post-inflammatory pigmentation, like maybe post-pregnancy, we often see a lot of what we call hormone discoloration, but it's also inflammation. But post-inflammation pigmentation can come after also acne, like any type of irritation to the skin, like something too harsh. It can come from picking at our skin. That'll cause inflammation. If you have sensitive skin, like myself, sometimes getting like hives just from exposure of different things, not necessarily external or environmental, sometimes food types of things, burns, sunburn, a procedure like peels or chemical peels, things like that, laser peels, or just, overall inflammatory process like autoimmune disorders and things like that have a natural inflammatory process. And if we tend to be sensitive or skin sensitive, that inflammation is going to show up on our face. Hormonal pigmentation, this often shows up more as patchy or shadowing, like when we see like a hormone. Sometimes women will get the hormone challenges around the mouth where it's more like a darker shadowing, like a patchy. That can be either around the mouth, the upper lip, cheek. That can be up on the cheeks. It can also be forehead. It can also be that jawline. And I see jawline show up a lot, even with like acne and things like that. Jawline and neck. Acne on those areas often is hormone imbalances, as well as a chronic or repetitive inflammation, whether you're maybe in menopause, perimenopause. But if you had that as in your menstruating years, those areas could still be inflamed as well. On a deeper, more stubborn pigmentation, those are the ones I'm saying may not respond as quickly because they're not just really sitting on the surface of the skin. And most hyperpigmentation is not sitting on the surface of the skin anyway, but it may need that constant repair, the lymphatic movement, calming, and time. As you know, with True Energy, we're not using chemicals and we're not using bleach. A lot of the products out there that are addressing hyperpigmentation or spots due to whatever reason, they tend to do more bleaching on the surface of the skin, which is also why when you get out in the sun and you have exposure, you tend to have those spots either come back or have more spots because the skin is compromised by harsh chemicals. So what's important to understand when we're addressing hyperpigmentation of the skin is that it takes time. So having some patience and being gentle on yourself is really important because more is not better. And what we're working at is we're working at the underlying issues and the clustering of the hyperpigmentation that is coming up to the surface of the skin, where we're changing that through the frequencies, through the sodalite face mask, and those amazing ingredients that are really the active ingredients that help to cool, if you will, all of those inflammatory processes. When I do get sun exposure, that it's not exacerbated, if you will, by chemicals. But the other thing to look at in that process is that when you have a cluster, like your cheek has a cluster of dark spots, there's going to be combination things that happen there. There's going to be some of those hyperpigmentations that are deeper and some that are more superficial. And what happens is as the cells start repairing and the healthier cells come to the surface of the skin, you may be looking at the spots as coming out more, but what's really happening is that the more superficial spots are actually decreasing in hyperpigmentation, making some of the spots look more prevalent. If you're still having some issues with the dark spots, even though you've been using, maybe the ageless spot treatment, and maybe you've been using the face mask as well, these are some areas that to consider that I'm going to help with is that the skin area is still inflamed, that the lymph is still sluggish, that the circulation is still not circulating at that rate that it has a good cell turnover. Maybe the barrier is still irritated. So the skin, what we tend to do is over treat it. So is the skin being over treated? Like ageless spot treatment, you don't want to use 2 or 3 times a day. You only want to use it once a day at night before when you go to sleep, not in the morning when you're about to go out in the sun, because it does have a good cell turnover. So you don't want to use it in the morning unless you're going to, have some protective barrier, or at least not go out for a couple of hours, 20 minutes to a couple of hours. The other is that, is your entire body dealing with a toxic overload or an oxidative stress? And then, of course, is the pigment deeper than expected? So if the skin still feels like it's under threat, it won't really prioritize the correction. It'll prioritize the protection. So what we do to our skin makes a difference in how it shows up for you, because you're working with it, shows up for you over the years. So consistency in skincare and the products that you're using, even if you're not using a wand, even if you're not using, a mask, what you put on your face is either going to help it or hurt it. It's likely not going to do nothing at all. It's usually one or the other, because a lot of times for example, with ingredients, the ingredients are just ingredients that don't do anything but potentially clog the pores if they don't have any action and effect, if they aren't active ingredients. So the adverse effect would be, clogged pores, inflammation, and then deteriorated skin barrier. So the ingredients need to not only be active, but they also need to have function. That's why I talk a lot about functional skincare in functional aesthetics, right? Is functional skincare has to do with giving your body the nutrients that it needs to perform at its absolute best. So for example, if I'm treating someone in the clinic and I'm working on their thyroid or something like that, on a nutritional level, I'm going to give them protomorphogens or glandulars or, something that's going to help them to regrow the tissue so that their thyroid can be healthier. And there's other components to that. But this is the concept that I'm not replacing a hormone. I am giving the body the nutrients that it needs to rebuild. This is the exact same thing when we're talking about functional skincare. The nutrients in True Energy are designed to give your cells the information that it needs to increase the growth in collagen, decrease inflammation, help to repair not only the cell and detox the cell itself, but also the cellular membrane, which is really where a lot of the health of a cell comes from, because it allows nutrients in, toxins out, and enables your ATP and all the energy of that cell to take in nutrients. I also get spots on arms and hands and slightly on the face. What is the cause? So we talked about the cause, but I'll tell you, one of the new products that I am working on is a glove with a cream to wear at night to repair the spots on the hand and the wrist area. The body cream is a great reparative. It actually has quite a few ingredients that really help for age spots as well as thin skin or crepey skin. It'll help to thicken, replump that skin as well. You can use the ageless spot on your hands. I definitely have been doing that. That seems to have helped a lot, but I think that the skin on the hands is a little less permeable than the skin on the face, which is why I'm, creating that whole package. Browning around like that, the shadowing or the darkness around the neck, usually that's like jawline and potentially some spots in the neck. That's still the same concept in those different areas, often hormone influence, because it can be corrected. Does the spot correction good for hands? Yes. Hands and arms as well as face. Yes, absolutely. I definitely find that makes a difference, especially after sun exposure. When applying the ageless spot removal or spot treatment, should we really rub it into the skin, or do we apply lightly and let it absorb, which would be more ideal? You don't need to rub it in. I get what you're saying, because, like get better penetration. But a lot of times when you're rubbing in to your skin, you're actually getting a lot more rubbing into your fingertips than potentially your skin. So what I tend to do is like an overall protocol, especially with, sun exposure. If it's a scrub time at night, then I'll cleanse my face, scrub my face. And then what I'll do is to use the eye and put that on, but don't, just patting it on. So you're taking the applicator, putting it on, right? And then just using the applicator or your fingers and just letting it sit. And then I'm doing the rest of the product on my face. Then I go to bed. I have my ageless spot next to my bed. So after about 20 minutes, the active ingredients, which, I have a lot of active ingredients in the skincare. So the active ingredients for the nighttime in the serum will have had a chance to penetrate deeply enough that now when you're using the spot treatment right before you go to bed, I will use the spot treatment and not rub it in. I'm definitely, getting in all the areas that I want, but then I'm just kind of letting it absorb. What about eczema skin patches along the collarbone, chest area? I was thinking maybe the nighttime cream that you have. So serum first, nighttime cream. Both that combination is a great area in this. Not as sensitive the face, more sensitive than the rest of the body. But I would do serum first and then night cream. The night cream's got some great reparative, and you can always play with a little bit too and see what works best for you. Does the spot cream bring up dark spots from damage that was caused by the sun? I noticed after using the cream, my dark spot is getting much better. Took time, but I was applying it all over my face. Then another dark spot that wasn't there came to the surface close to where the first dark spot is. Lots of different possibilities on that. And what I would say is that the repair is going to be from the inside out. Clusters of melanin can show up on different areas. It is possible that a spot from underneath just hadn't come to the surface of the skin, where it's just clearing out, if you will, because it doesn't just dissipate, it has to clear out. if you know what I'm saying. So it's possible, but you probably notice it's just not as common. Now, I do have, like, if we're going to talk my problem dark spot area, right, which I always refer to right on the surface of the skin, right on the front, I'm using the spot correction on my face constantly. Periodically, I'll feel like a little rough spot there that I'm not sure if it's just cleaning out, unhealthy cells that are pretty deep. Because what we know, and my disclaimer here is I'm not saying that this treats or does anything with cancer cells at all, but I'm just going to talk about it relative to my face and what I feel and my thoughts, which is that cancer cells tend to be a little bit deeper and they come to the surface of the skin, which is why when you do like different techniques that they have to cut in to make sure that they're getting those deeper cells, is because cancer cells don't just show up at the surface of the skin. If they did, it'd be much easier to get rid of them. So those deeper unhealthy cells can eventually come to the surface of the skin if we're doing reparative work. Lymphatic drainage, we know with lymphatic drainage that helps to detox cells and make healthier cells. If you're using, the skincare versus the skincare and the protocol is very, very much promotes lymphatic drainage. So even if you're not doing the protocol on your, first 30 days, I would like to see people using the protocol at least 3 times a week, just for healthy lymphatic drainage and things like that, because the face does not have the same muscles that the body does that pump the lymphatic system and the vascular system. We don't have a pumping system for the face. We're manually, if you will, moving lymphatics, which is why it's so important to open those lymphatic portals that don't have anything that move those or pump those. They really physically need opening. If you haven't ever noticed this in how I have the ingredients, is that if you go immediately, it'll be on description, right? So you have the ageless spot remedy. And then over here, I have the description of it, but what's inside? The way I have this designed is that I actually break it down into different areas and actually let you know what it does. For the most part, it's not, I can't write a paragraph on each one. I'd bore you all to death, but I have it divided down into different active aspects of this, right? So botanical oils, natural ferments and bioactive ingredients, botanical extracts and herbs, natural lipids and barrier enhancers, natural antioxidants, and energizing ingredients. So when you look at these, you'll see that after I say what the ingredient is, I also say what it's rich in doing, right? It's not the only thing it does, it's the highlights. So you can see whether you're, protecting the cell barrier with the fatty acids. If you're, for example, like this one right here, this is a natural fermented extract that actually is an alternative to hyaluronic acid. Y'all know that hyaluronic acid is a chemical that I like the concept of hyaluronic acid, but I want something the cell is going to use, right? Because hyaluronic acid is natural to the cell. And so, all the other ingredients that are balancing are, they're support ingredients versus the active ingredients and protecting the skin barrier. So, these are important things when you're, talking about decreasing the inflammation, is protecting the skin barrier. And again, strengthening the skin barrier. These are all things that are really helpful for the surface of the skin being able to be at its optimal. And then the other is what we also have is that I haven't talked about yet is the the blue gemstone ageless face mask. And I'm actually going to go to this one. And so the face mask is a huge enhancement in increasing circulation. This is imprinted with frequencies that help for increasing the flow of the energy and all of the different meridians, decreasing inflammation, all of the things that we talked about on hyperpigmentation. This is exactly what this does. And so the gemstone is helps for fighting that free radicals, promote collagen and elastin production, improves skin texture, hydration, decreases those hyperpigmentation and the inflammation below the skin. This is the blue sodalite mask, and some of y'all already have it, but this I will use over the spot treatment, the spot remedy. So when you get in bed and you put the spot remedy on last, you can put this on top of that, of the application of that spot remedy to help that product penetration as well. And then even just the natural blue sodalite gemstones have a nice increase in circulation for, for your skin as well. So this is definitely, like as y'all were talking and having some stubborn areas and things like that, this is what I would definitely add to that combination in making sure that you use it. So I have two things, right? So one is the eye mask and one is this. If I'm using the eye mask, I'll leave it on for about 15, 20 minutes. A lot of times I'll fall asleep with it anyway. But as long as you have it on for like 5 minutes, you're going to get, some major benefits from that. But 20 minutes is, 15 to 20 minutes is a nice timeline. And then, for those of you, because I know someone's going to ask, what do you use, the eye mask or the face mask? It varies. I absolutely want to make sure I'm getting this in 2 to 3 times, at least 3 times per week. If I'm really focusing hard on the spots, I'll use it every day. But I always like to have the eye mask next to me so that if I wake up in the middle of the night, I can just put the eye mask on and it puts me right back to sleep. So that's how I tend to use them when I'm using both. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. Have an amazing, amazing month. And I will see you soon. Love you bunches. Bye-bye.